Congratulations and welcomes to another week of ADDAZERO, live and unplugged. I'm Jay Allen, not only just the host of these 30-minute weekly sessions, but also the author of ADDAZERO to your personal disposable income. We're joined today by Graham, who's the first in the room. And Graham, the way it works is this. I'm going to ask you to come up with any number between 23 and 230. So pick a number between 23 and 230.
Do you want me to tell you the number or keep it secret?
Sorry, if you could share that with me. I'm good, but I'm just not that good.
Okay, I thought I was going to have a magic trick. My number is 166.
166. So all I'm going to do is you're going to notice I'm just going to flick through the book until we get to page 166. And we're into chapter 5, all about money and margins. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to very briefly read you an extract from page 166 so you know as to what we're talking about. And then we're going to determine as to how does this impact you and your business and how to be able to make it relevant so we can get something from it from today. So okay. Operating margins is the subtitle. And we start off with an equation. Operating margin equals operating income divided by revenue.
Right, yeah.
To calculate the operating margin, you'll need to know your operating income. Operating income is the company's earnings before interest and tax expenses, otherwise known as EBIT. Expenses before interest and taxes. To calculate your operating income, just subtract your expenses, excluding tax and interest, from the revenue. Let's give you a quick example. If you have a sales of £1 million and an operating income of £100,000, then your operating margin is 10%. So I've taken a little bit from the book, but now let's look at its relevance. One of the big things that I get gravely concerned about with regards to business owners who are working particularly hard to try and grow their business is a lack of understanding of the real numbers in a business as opposed to what I call the vanity numbers in a business. Now, majority of people, when you say how well's business, how big's the business, they talk about the turnover of a business. They'll talk about how much cash is brought into the business in any one per annum or per quarter. But in actual fact, if it costs as much or even more to run the business than it does to generate the business, then in actual fact, you're on a hiding to nothing and you're working harder and harder and harder. You know, anyone can do £1 million in sales if it costs you 1.1 million to generate them. But as you appreciate, that ain't that sustainable. So it could be, well, as long as my operating margin is positive, as long as that there is more left in the bank after I've taken all my costs out, then in actual fact, I'm a profitable business and I can continue to do business. And sure enough, that as long as the cash going out is less than the cash coming in, then you've got some form of sustainability.
Yep.
But I'm not a business coach. I don't do sustainability. I'm more interested in sustainable scale. And for that, we need to be able to understand operating margin at a completely different level. Because what I'm interested in is how do I increase revenue and turnover? How do I grow the top line while shrinking the bottom line? It's my interest as a scale-up coach to be able to move the parameters so we can do more business more cost effectively and increase the profit margin inside the business. And to be able to do that, we need to take a different set of numbers other than just that vanity matrix of how much the turnover is. We need to look at how good a relationship have you got with your suppliers? Could we renegotiate terms with regards to where we buy purchase our product or services from in order to be able to get a better return on how much we're spending? It could be that we renegotiate with the landlord, or with the telecoms provider, or with our CRM or website developer, and say, look, I'm in this for the long haul, rather than me paying you monthly, month in and month out, month in and month out. What's a better investment? I know I'm going to have this website for the next 3 or 4 years before it needs to be updated and this and the other. How much are you going to charge me if I pay you for 4 years up front and show you that I'm in? And then ironically, find out as to, okay, we might have to find a lump sum payments to be able to do that, but there are various other ways in a business to be able to extract some cash quite quickly. But it might be that if we go through and we renegotiate all of our spends, then in actual fact we could reduce, even if it's only by 2 or 3%, while still maintaining the same quality and value. Now, the difference between being able to do 2 or 3% savings in our costs and maybe 10 or 15 or 20% increase in our turnover is a 2 or 3% saving in our costs is a direct saving onto our net profits. Whereas a 20, 15, 20, 25% growth in revenue, if the profit margins in the business aren't such, might only contribute 0.5% to the net profit growth. And therefore, there's a whole chapter in there. Chapter 5 is all about money and margins, and understanding that it's not just the cash within the business, but where the cash comes from, how quickly it takes to be able to bring it into the business, and look at our debtor rate or our long-term debtor rate. Looking at how quickly we spend money in the business and understanding our burn rate of how quickly we spend cash. How much have we got in reserves in order to be able to allow ourselves that freedom of saying, well, if it's going to be 20% cheaper to pay up front than it is to pay on tick, then I'll happily save 20% by being able to contribute there and then. And ironically, our coaching programs, all of them are set in around 20, somewhere between 20 and 22% profit margin favourability in favour of one pay payments. Let me just give you a quick example, and then we can perhaps come to your business and find out as to how best we can implement that for you in your business. When I do our pricing model, I determine as to what the costs are that we're going to incur, not only for delivery of the service, but also the long-term fixed costs within the business, build all that into our models to understand as to how much I've got to charge for each product or service to be able to be sustainable. I come up with the profit margins that I want to be able to make within the business and work those accordingly. And that is my fixed fee one pay option. So if somebody's going to pay for 6 months or 12 months of coaching with My TrueNORTH, then I've worked out as to what 6 months will cost us. I've incurred a little bit of a profit margin so we can continue to grow the business and make it available to other people. And that is the cost or the pricing model that we'll charge for a single pay option. But some people said, look, I'd love to do work with you for 6 months, but I haven't got an extra £5,000, £6,000, £7,000 hanging out my back pocket just waiting to be spent with you today. Could it possibly be that I could pay for it over the 6 months that I'm working with you? And the majority of people will turn around and say, yes, not a problem. I'll divide my fixed cost, my one pay, by 6 monthly options.
Yeah.
And the big problem with that is that you're providing interest-free credit at the expense of you and your business. I'm not sure the last time that you ever went out and were able to have interest-free credit within your business for anything that you wanted to spend.
Yeah, and you're opening that to a client.
Absolutely. Now, ironically, and you've automatically created some form of charitable giving by giving away the margin that otherwise it's costing you to run the business. As a very bare minimum, the current, as we record this and share this today, the current Bank of England base rate is 9.1%. So unless we're charging a minimum of 9.1% interest for split pay, then in actual fact, we're doing ourselves a disservice for the benefit of somebody else. However, if I want to be able to buy something today and I haven't got cash in my pocket, if I've determined that I'm going to have to use my own credit card, then at the best will in the world, my credit card's going to charge me at the moment 23, 24, 25. Some of the credit card markets on the market at the moment are 33, 34, 35% per annum interest. So my argument would be that as long as my credit terms, my fixed cost divided by the period of delivery, 6 months coaching, let's split it into 6 months payments, as long as my monthly instalment cost, and I'm going to come to language in a second or two, but as long as my monthly instalment cost is more favourable than the person having to put it on a credit card, then it's still in their best interests to be able to pay the instalment fees that you're charging rather than paying Barclaycard or MasterCard.
Yeah.
And as long as it's more than 9.1% Bank of England base rate as we speak today, then in actual fact, everyone's a winner.
Right, okay.
Now, it could be that you would prefer people to pay up front, to be able to pay for the entire service up front as a single pay option. Mm-hmm. And I'll show you how to do that in a second. We're going to have a quick role play example to demonstrate as to how that works. However, having big chunks of cash into the business and then having to be able to discipline yourself to be able to manage the usage of that over the period of time that you've got a contract with them to deliver product or service can sometimes, for some businesses, be quite a difficult thing to manage. Let's assume that within our business, most of our clients are on a 12-month fixed term contract. Let's assume that all of our clients was to pay on the single pay option. And I received literally hundreds of thousands of pounds in January, February time as everyone signed up to renew their membership for the year. And then subsequently paid me not a penny for the next 11 months.
Right, yeah.
Now, first of all, that might sound like a great option to be in. I'm now cash rich in January and everyone's a winner. As long as I can divide that money through my operating costs for the next 11 months, then I'm happy and sat pretty because my profit margin's already in the bank before I've even started work on a Monday morning. Mm-hmm. Until I realised that the government, in its infinite wisdom, have now gone to making tax digital and I'm going to pay my tax quarterly. Mm-hmm. So all of a sudden I've got this huge big tax bills to pay in April, May time, at the same time as my end of year report from the year before and a month after my corporation's tax return. All of a sudden I've got lots of costs to go out very quickly afterwards that I might not have given considerations to when I divided my money up for how much I needed to be able to have operating costs for the rest of the year, and I get to October and I'm skint. So what we tend to do as a business is we say we want to do around 50-50. We want about 50% of our incomes to come in up front, and we'd like about 50% of our monies to be paid for in monthly instalments or quarterly instalments to be able to help cover ongoing costs and potentially business development throughout the year.
Yeah.
So let's see as to how best we can do this and help clients to understand the benefits of being able to go from one to the other. Graham, we're going to do a very brief role play, if we may.
Okay.
You're the customer. You're the customer. Mm-hmm. And I'm selling something to you.
Right.
In the first scenario.
Mm-hmm.
And all I want you to do every single time that I say something to you, when we start the role play, mm-hmm. I want your reply to be, really sounds interesting, but it's more than I want to spend. Okay? Because I'm sure that all of us come across that within our business. It sounds a phenomenal product or service, but in actual fact...
Cost is the issue. Yeah.
Cost is the issue. It's usually the biggest hurdles to overcome. Okay?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So the first question you're going to ask is, Jay, how much does it cost? And then the reply to anything I have to say is, sounds great, but it's more than I want to spend. Okay?
Okay. Right.
Cool. Let's go for it.
Okay, right, yeah. How much is this going to cost?
Graham, great question. I'm delighted that you've asked it for me. Some of our top clients who've been with us for 3 or 4 years now spend around £15,000 a year with us. Mm-hmm. But you could start from as little as 20 quid. What else would you like to know?
Right. From a cost point of view, I don't really want to go spending that kind of money.
Okay, not a problem. Well, rather than going to our Explorer program, perhaps you'd like to start off with our Pathfinder. That's just about £4,500 a year.
Yeah, that's more than I want to spend trying to run a business.
No trouble at all. Well, in which case, I think Pathfinder's the right solution for you. It's about where you are at in business. It's specifically designed for people like you. But if £4,500 more than you want to spend, why don't you just give me a deposit for £400 and spend the rest over the next 11 months?
Yeah, that sounds good, but the overall cost, that's more than I want to spend.
Brilliant. Then let's break it down even further. What we could do is we'll do £400 deposit now. We'll defer for the next 8 weeks on the premise that the things that we're going to deliver over the first quarter, I guarantee is going to be able to increase your revenue sufficient to cover the cost of the entire training program.
Yeah, it does sound good, but it's more than I want to spend.
Not a problem. Then the best way to start is just 997 for a single month, where we'll do day-to-day interventions to be able to help you generate £5,000 so you can pay for Pathfinder.
Yeah, £1,000 is a lot. It's more than I want to spend.
Not a problem. Then the best thing you could possibly do right now is to spend £20 and buy my book. Read through the book. It entitles you to be able to come to these weekly Q&A sessions to be able to help and understand any problems that you're having and implement the things within it. And I guarantee you it'll help generate your first £1,000.
That does sound good,
But
it's a bit much for a book, £20.
no trouble at all, my friend. The best thing you can possibly do is I'll send you a link to our free Facebook community where I go in there every week and give a hint and a tip. And if you can't make £20 from any one of those tips, then you probably ought to go back to employment and give up being a business owner altogether. How does that sound?
Sounds good. I'll do it.
I've gone from 15 grand to free.
Yeah.
And I've still got every option to be able to continue to communicate with you and help free to generate £20, £20 to generate £1,000, £1,000 to generate £5,000, £5,000 to generate 15 grand or more. I can help work back up the ladder because I've got a variety of different options. But I'm only able to do any of that because I know my fixed costs and my variable costs and where my margins are.
Yeah, because from a cost point of view, initially, that was something that's way out the ballpark. But you did get to a point where I'm thinking, okay, that becomes very reasonable based on the potential that we can achieve.
Very much so. Listen, every customer, the very fact that they've stopped in the street or in your business premises or online or whatever, the very fact that a customer has made the inquiry, how much does it cost, is the assurance and the affirmation that I want to buy what you have, and yet money is likely to be the barrier to being able to do so. I see the benefit of having this. I want to have this in my life because otherwise I wouldn't have asked the question.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't walk down the estate agents at the weekend and walk past this incredibly beautiful house and say, that 9-bed on 4 acres with a swimming pool and tennis court is exactly where I want to be next week. How much does it cost? Oh, that's more than I want to spend. Because it's outside of my league and it's not something I want right now.
Yeah.
The only reason I've said, it says price and application, can you give me an indication as to what sort of ballpark you're looking for that, is because I've got a genuine interest in wanting to know more information about it. I'm ready to move forward. So the moment somebody asks a question about cost, we've already helped them understand the benefit of value. Now we've got to overcome is their perception of value will be different to our perception of value. And therefore, by having a variety of different pricing options and knowing where our margins are, will enable us to be able to work through that with them to find out what becomes effective and acceptable risk to them whilst they see the benefit that we deliver. And we can only do that when we've read chapter 5 and understand the costs and the margins within a business.
Interesting. That's really strange because the way that I charge and we charge as a business is it's based on a fee payable. I came across a company a few weeks ago where they do it monthly. option. And there's no reason why I couldn't use that in a proposition, because if that's what the agreement is, I can easily draw up terms of business based on that.
Yes.
Or
Now, I'm conscious of time, but to the same extent, I don't want us to leave you without all the information. There's a massive, massive piece of work, or at least a consideration that needs to happen around what's called red and green language. It's actually in the book as well, if you look it up, around marketing and marketing management. But red and green language, as soon as you talk about a cost, that's red language. To me, that's a cost. To me, is something that I don't want to incur. I'm going to move away from costs.
Yeah.
A fee is what professionals charge. You know, you've been to play golf at the weekend, and there was a fee to pay to go and play.
Yeah. And
I didn't query it. I didn't turn around and say, £74 for a buggy? You've got to be kidding me. I'll give you 40 quid. We didn't enter that negotiation because there's some professional fees associated with it. When I go to my private dentist, there is an appointment cost for me being in the room with them. When I go to my solicitor, I'm billed on a 6-minute interval. They're professional fees. So fees have green language attached to them. I see a benefit in paying a fee, whereas a cost is a red language. I'm more restrictive and concerned about paying costs. Meanwhile, if I say, well, there's an annual fee of £4,500 to be a member of our Pathfinder, that's wonderful, but I haven't got £4,500. Is there a way I can pay on tick? Is there a way I can spread the costs? All of a sudden, they've used the word costs. All of a sudden, they're thinking this is a cost. I've got to be able to amend that. Yes, we have 11 interest-free instalments. Now, the reason why it's called an instalment and not a split fee or a monthly fee is that a monthly fee is you're paying for a month, whereas the program is a 12-month program of which you're making a monthly instalment towards.
Right, yeah.
So understanding how to be able to communicate and utilise language to be able to ensure that we're continuing to use green language to be able to attract people to us and not create barriers in place by inadvertently talking about costs and the likes, or monthly membership. Monthly membership says I can give you 28 days notice and leave. Well, if you're halfway through a program of support and we've agreed to work together for a year, then in actual fact it's the third instalment of your annual membership.
Yeah. Okay, I get that.
Okay?
Yeah, logical. Good.
Cool. So I'm going to stop recording here so we can get it shared and everything. But that's Jay Allen from ADDAZERO being able to do another live and unplugged to be able to share another insight into why it's imperative that each and every business owner has something, even if it's just the guidebook, to be able to help them to fully understand how to think differently, do differently, and achieve differently. God bless, take care, and I'll see you next week.